Hey guys, it's Alex and Dad from 7th Hour Films back again with Doctor Who Classic. Last time on Doctor Who Classic, we finished up The Enemy of the World. What was that one about?
Well, it had a lot of twists and turns that we weren't expecting.
Yeah.
We discovered this an entire kind of underground chamber with people who are actually controlling earthquakes and volcanoes and things like that. And they accidentally, the Doctor and Vicky and Jamie find out that Salamander has been sending food down to them, and they think that there has been some kind of catastrophic war up top, and so it all goes to pieces. Then we find out that the guy that we thought was the Doctor's friend turns out to be in league with Salamander, and everybody goes crazy. And at the very end, we actually have the scene where the Doctor and Salamander, who is the doppelganger, are actually in the same scene arguing with each other, and one shot of them actually like nose to nose, which was pretty good.
Yeah.
And then a Salamander tries to have the TARDIS take off without closing the doors, and he gets sucked out into oblivion.
Right. Now, interesting thing that you just said. You said the Doctor and Jamie and Vicky, and at first you didn't say Victoria, but then I kind of sat there like, not remembering. I was like, I mean, I guess that could be another name for Victoria, but still. So we'll let it slide. But
sorry, Victoria.
Yeah. I mean, it's close enough. So, yes, that was The Enemy of the World, and that does lead us straight into the next one, The Web of Fear. Which, I mean, it was about a year ago we watched this one, technically. So
probably a little bit more than that. It feels like more than that.
Yeah, it might have been closer to a year and a half at this point. But yes, technically we have already watched The Web of Fear in its entirety. But we are rewatching it, like with Tomb of the Cybermen. So we're going to be doing the first 3 episodes in this video, and then the next 3 in the next video. Go ahead and split it up because we don't need to do 6 parts in one video again.
What were we thinking?
Yeah. It's just how that worked out back then.
Yeah.
You know, now we have the luxury of more time. Yeah. So yeah, we're going to be rewatching this one. I don't know how long the discussion will be for this particular video because we're not going to be talking about the full episode. And, you know, we have a bit more, context going into this. Like, okay, we understand the Yetis now with the abominable snowmen and everything.
And I think one of the biggest questions we had was, why did they have a young man like Watling portraying the older Professor Travers? And then we found out that he had to be made up older because it was like 25 years or 30 years, so many years after they had encountered him there in the Himalayas where he was looking for the abominable snowman, and that makes more sense now. Whereas before, I was thinking, wow, for television, that was really kind of strange makeup for him.
Yeah, and I do remember there were some scenes, like especially like one of the first scenes. I remember, like we watched it and we were like, I don't really know what's happening here. Like something's going on. I don't know. There's a Yeti, and then so maybe now we'll understand it a bit more. But yeah, we will have a Q&A next video, specifically. I figured it would make the most sense to wait until we went through all 6 episodes of this. So next time we will have our Q&A. Probably by the time this goes up to Patreon or YouTube, it will be too late to be involved in the Q&A. So sorry about that if you just realized that you're too late. But you could go ahead and start planning for the next one, which will be in Season 8 when we get around to Terror of the Autons again. Because that'll be the next one. So, I guess that's pretty much it. You got anything else?
Just that, I don't know if I mentioned this when we did it before. Doesn't most of this take place in the underground, the subway system, the tubes?
Yes.
I don't know if I mentioned it before, but I actually did ride the tubes back in '65. That day that we spent down in London, my friends and I, after we got out of junior high school, that was one of the things. None of us had ever been on a subway before, so we went down and rode there. Couldn't tell you where we went, but I do know that we rode that. We went up, we saw London Bridge, and we went to the Museum of Natural History and Piccadilly Square and Piccadilly Circus and Trafalgar Square, places like that. And if I recall correctly, we even saw a movie there. It was, I think it was the premiere of the Man from U.N.C.L.E. movie, but don't quote me on that. Somebody can look that up. Man from U.N.C.L.E. 1965 would have been May or June.
Now, 1965, that is when the first Doctor Who movie came out with Peter Cushing. But as you have said, you have no recollection of it ever existing.
That's right, and let me correct that. It would have been May or June of 66, because it was between the time I finished school, the semester had finished, and we left in June of 66 to come back to the United States.
Oh, okay.
So, sorry, not 65, 66.
That might have still...
But yeah, I don't remember Doctor Who movies, either one of them, ever being promoted on television or anything else.
That might still have been, like, Dalek Invasion of Earth might have been 66, but I can't remember. Yeah. So, but yeah, I guess that's just that. So, we should go ahead and get into The Web of Fear, Part 1.
Jamie! The doors! We've got to close the doors! Can you do it?
See, all of this suddenly makes sense.
He's not in a very enviable position, you know, at the moment, floating around in time and space. Now then, where shall we go? Oh, well, let's just get our breath back first before we start.
He didn't have that at the end of the
anyway,
last episode,
as you know,
did he?
the TARDIS is a mind of its own. You know you can't control it. Can't control it. No.
Oh, no.
We'll see about that.
Don't do it again.
We'll see about that.
You ended up on the moon last time.
Here we go.
Damn it, he knows it's a robot.
But Father, the Yeti isn't dangerous. Well, it can't work unless it has a control unit.
But I've done it, Anne. I have reactivated a control unit.
What'd you do that for?
Oh, this is wonderful news.
This is totally the house from The Evil of the Daleks, by the way.
You know, because in the 1960s, people still light their museums with candles.
Oh. Got eyes now.
3 perhaps?
Well, how the hell should I know? Yeah, that thing working.
Of course.
It's more than likely we may not be able to defeat this menace. And that London, in fact, the whole of England might be completely wiped out. Where'd you get that?
Ah, yes. Portrayal of journalists as being smarmy.
No.
There.
Oh, are you offended as a former journalist?
Yes.
Where are we?
But I really don't know, Victoria. Shall we go out and have a look?
Now,
Jamie
is it
acquired a
safe?
watch.
Oh, I shouldn't think so for a
No.
moment. Jamie, I think we're going to need torches.
Would be hilarious if one time they didn't mean a flashlight and they actually just had like you go through a tomb kind of torch.
Sort of grill. It's an underground station. We're standing on the platform.
Underground station?
Trains, underground trains. A little after your time, I think, Victoria.
Is it always as dark as this?
No, it's probably the middle of the night. Come along, let's go up top. There'll be lots of life up there. Funny, isn't it? What? How we keep on landing on your Earth?
Oh, now he realizes that.
Just let me get my breath. Oh, those stairs. Looks like we walked in, though. Oh, well, that's strange.
Do you remember
Doctor?
going on the underground, the metro in Washington, D.C.?
Can't hear anything.
Those gigantic long escalators.
Oh, it is quite
Slightly. If only because everything in DC was gigantic.
Yeah.
Like a mile.
Yes, it actually has a face now. Just not just eyes, but some
Ah,
of a nose.
I can't raise them, sir.
Looks like the Yeti suits have been somewhat redesigned too,
Yeah.
other than the head.
Okay, Weems, no sense in wasting any more time. Off you go.
Right, sir.
If I remember correctly, next episode actually won't have Patrick Troughton because it was his week off, and that was the whole lead-in, was that he got injured from what was left of that explosion.
Well, it certainly seems to move faster now that we know what's going on.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it is one of those things. It's like Tomb of the Cybermen. Like, oh, I get it now. I mean, down to just the lines about Salamander at the beginning. Like, oh, I get what that means now. And now we know the Yetis and Travers, and for some reason he reactivated one of the spheres. It sounds like his own fault, but whatever.
Yeah.
But still very interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, it's also one of those things where it's like, I really haven't watched this since we reacted to it. Like, I didn't rewatch the episode, the video or anything, so I kind of forget most everything that was in this episode.
Yeah. Now, again, I can't say I was at Charing Cross Station, because it may have been King's Cross. I knew it was something Cross, but Charing Cross sounds very, very familiar.
I think, if I remember correctly, someone also said that they were going to film in the actual subways, but they weren't allowed to, so all of this is sets that they built. And apparently they got into trouble because the sets were so convincing that I guess the city of London was like, hey, we told you not to film down there. And they were like, well, no, we didn't. We made sets, like you said. So,
well, that would have been very easy to copy, because, I mean, there's pictures of all that stuff that the set designers could just have had a field day with it.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's way easier to describe or to disguise the actual train tunnels. Like, okay, here's a platform, change the signs, maybe shoot it at a bit of a different angle.
Yeah.
All right, here's the tunnel. What does it look like? It looks like all the other tunnels that you've had. Just put it some sort of different angle to make it look a little different, Or maybe they even had, like, a way of sort of, like, maybe they had, like, 4 pieces of a tunnel, and they could maybe match them together so that, like, entrances would be a bit different.
Yeah.
So,
but, yeah, the script moves along. Again, now that we kind of know what's going on, the fact that Travers had taken the Yeti back after the original encounter with the Doctor.
Yeah.
I don't remember him keeping one of the spheres, though, but he somehow has managed to reactivate one, which again has somehow called up the Yeti from the museum. But where did the second one come from?
Yeah, I mean, presumably, I guess maybe presumably after, like, we don't know how long he has reactivated the one sphere, because after that, he just said that he lost it. So maybe some time has passed enough for the Great Intelligence to start making more. Although at the museum, there was already a second one there.
But I thought Silverstein said, I have the only one in the world.
Yeah, so I guess... So maybe the Great Intelligence was just making more already, and it just sort of worked itself out. Why the Great Intelligence is still using the same Yeti design, I don't know. Like, it kind of works when it's like, okay, yeah, you could probably find a Yeti in Tibet. And it's like, when you're in the London Underground, I don't think that's really going to work,
I'm sure there are all sorts of strange things in the underground, but Yetis probably aren't one of them.
Yeah, so... Alrighty. Though it sounds like something you would find in, like, the New York Underground, like, with the TMNT,
And the alligators that are down there.
Get something up here.
It's obvious, isn't it? It's been got.
Where's that Doctor? That's what I'd like to know.
I feel like we're getting all the Britishisms today. It's been got at. Really? Has it now?
In it. I love that. INNIT.
That's over 40 years ago.
What's going on here?
Oh, Jamie, don't you recognize him? It's Professor Travers.
The mad anthropologist.
So it is Professor Travers.
He's even more mad than he used to be.
Oh, but we're very...
Oh, Victoria, try and explain to Anne, will you? It's all right, Victoria. I mean, you were born... I mean, she was born years before I was.
So much funnier now.
Yeah.
Oh, dear.
Flies through time and space?
Not exactly flies. It's difficult to explain.
Not half as difficult as it is to believe.
Your father believes it.
Yes.
It is a bit tricky when it's like, it's not just that it's a time machine, it's a police box.
You take reality and you make it into a comic strip. In short, Mr. Chorley, you are a sensation monger.
You smug little red brick university...
Don't say it, Mr. Chorley. I have a very quick temper and very long claws.
There's no sense in us losing our temper, Miss Travers. I'm sorry that my journalistic star doesn't appeal to you, but there are millions of people it does.
He's a tabloid journalist.
Has a very
No.
large
Yes, it does. It does indeed.
But the government picked him specifically?
Well, I think the other journalists might have done that. Other than being able to outrun them.
I mean, I was going to say, they look a lot more mobile this time.
What do you mean?
Doesn't it strike you as odd that on the 2 occasions when you've encountered the Yeti, you've also come across the Doctor?
Well?
Well, it's obvious he controls them.
Oh, but surely, what?
He reckons they're abominable snowmen.
Yeah, well, he's off his chump, isn't he?
How'd they get here in the first place? They come through the post, didn't they?
Nah, seriously. Out of space, that's where they come from. Well, that's what I reckon anyway.
Oh, do leave off. You've been reading
Well,
too
you're
many
not
kids'
wrong.
comics, you have.
All right then, Court, where do they come from?
It's a foreign power, isn't it? Bacteriological warfare. That's what that stuff is in the tunnels.
Well, that fungus stuff?
Yeah. And them Yetis some sort of new weapon.
That's also
robot
not
army.
wrong.
Trapped! We've had it, Boyle. We can't go forward and we can't go back.
Alrighty. Part 2.
And again, very fast moving.
Yeah.
It all makes so much more sense now.
It really does. It was a slight problem last time because we hadn't seen the Abominable Snowmen, even more than Tomb of the Cybermen. Because you can watch that and be like, oh, okay, I get it for the most part. This one, yeah, you kind of need more of that context there.
But you're right also, it's so much fun listening to all the different variations of the British accent there. And having the subtitles, closed captions, really does help too, because some of those accents are, as Professor Higgins says, painful to your ears.
Yeah. I mean, that last guy that we picked up, I remember him kind of being like the weird one of the group, and just like watching his face as he talks, like it's the strangest thing of like, okay, his face is here, but his chin is like 2 or 3 inches to the left when he talks. Like it's not how you talk, man. So, let's see. I don't know. We didn't talk a whole lot during that episode, but
well, there's a lot of plot that has to be taken in.
Yeah.
You know, because you got what's going on there at headquarters. Then you had Victoria trying to explain to Anne what was going on. You had Jamie out in the tunnels. You had the staff and his men out in the tunnels. So it's like, I mean, seriously, it's like you got to keep all the pieces connected to know what's going on. So there wasn't much to really say while we were doing that.
Yeah. It is also interesting, too, because you watch this the first time around with no context, and it's like, okay, yeah, it makes sense. Everyone, they would be like, well, maybe this doctor guy is actually controlling them all. But now watching it after watching The Abominable Snowmen, you know everything, and you know Travers knows everything. So all of them not trusting the doctor, it's almost annoying. It's like, oh, come on, man. It's like, no, it wasn't him. It was the intelligence controlling Padmasambhava, controlling the other guy, controlling everyone else.
And if I may add another word to our language discussion, the professor was trying to work on the sphere, and he couldn't hold his hand steady, and he asked Anne to hold the soldering iron.
Yeah.
And here in America, we don't pronounce the L; it's just pronounced soldering.
Yeah, that's one I will give. Like, no, it probably should be pronounced as soldering iron. That's how it's spelled, But yeah, I noticed that too with the subtitles. Like, oh, help me with the soldering. Like, soldering. That's not how we say it. That's not how we say it. Yeah. We say soldering. So, that is very interesting. Just the difference there. And we are not criticizing. Let us make that clear before you leave your angry comments about us criticizing the English language.
We love the mother tongue.
Yeah.
We're just fascinated by the differences.
You have to admit, though, no matter where you're from, this language doesn't make any sense. And it hasn't made any sense since it was invented.
Yeah, I mean, just the Viking and the original British, then influenced by the French, who were influenced, of course, by the Latin, by the Romans. So, and then, especially now that we're here in North America, there are thousands of words that have come into our language from the Native Americans, And of course, we're influenced by all the other immigrants that come in, the Spanish and the Chinese and the Italians and Germans and the Romanians and Russians. And so it's a wonderful language. It's constantly growing.
I mean, it is, I guess, the melting pot of languages.
Yeah.
As America is what we're supposed to be, the melting pot of the world. Some people may not believe that, but that's what we're supposed to be. Yeah. So, and also, we don't really care if you guys do get angry about the language. We honestly find it funny, you know? Especially, like I've said before, since the great aluminum debacle of 2018 that I went through. So, if you guys would like to leave your angry comments about aluminum versus aluminium, go ahead and leave your comments and know that I won't read them. So, he will, but I won't. He'll still read all those comments.
Yes.
This will be the first and maybe one of the only times we have a reconstructed episode with subtitles.
Now, was that the first time that Troughton wasn't in an episode in his first 2 seasons?
I think so. At least it's the most notable.
Yeah.
Like, there might have been another episode where, like, he has a scene at the end, but they just, like, film it the previous week or something.
Shoot the pyramid!
I do like that Jamie is... Like, he's clever enough that it's like, oh, they have a pyramid? That's immediately the thing we need to destroy. Like, it's good for him to think that.
You're not good at it that short a distance.
Oh, maybe I did.
One moment.
Victoria. Oh, Dr. It's all right.
Well, you see,
Boy,
Victoria.
he really just pops into existence there.
Questions I'd like answered.
Yes, stop. Miss Colonel, where'd he come from? What's he doing here?
Don't ask me, lad. It's turning into a proper holiday camp, this place.
All right, Blake. You can fall out.
Well, he really just comes in and takes over the whole episode, doesn't he?
From what Victoria said, you had 1 or 2 suspicions about me.
Rubbish, my dear fella.
Yeah,
Whatever gave you that idea, Victoria?
His scratch seems to have been
ridiculous in all my
healed in the hour or so that he's been gone.
Yeah.
Did hear us talking then?
After getting hit by an explosion, he's actually healed. You know what I've noticed? There is nothing telling you, like, what's happening. The little scroll across.
I mean, the world must know what's going on down here. I mean, well, there must be a way out. The surface. What's on the surface?
Well, there's a ground level door in Cheney Street.
Of course. Thank you, Sergeant.
So here's an interesting thing. I don't remember everything, so I'm trying to remember if there was something up with Chorley.
Then, my dear fellow, one of the control spheres was intact. So naturally, I wanted to find out how it worked.
Oh dear.
Well, I fiddled with the thing on and off for years, and then one day...
There are certain things that man is not supposed to know.
Well,
yes. I thought I wasn't mistaken. Those Yeti have changed in appearance. Look.
Oh, yes, I see what you mean.
Yeah, the little scroll at the bottom telling us what the action was would have been helpful.
Well,
You'd like to help, wouldn't you? Yes, of course you would. Now, look, I'll tell you what I want you to do. We shall all be rushing about a bit, so what I want you to do is to wait in the common room. Act as a sort of liaison, obviously. You could do that, couldn't you?
Well, I don't know.
Yes,
I mean,
of course you could. Off you go. We'll all report progress to you personally.
What do you mean, coordinate things?
Yes, that's it. Well, Blake, see that Mr. Chorley has everything he needs. Desk, comfortable chair, plenty of paper and so on. So, off you go.
Wonder if his mustache is real.
You're right. That's...
Oh, there it goes. Yeti approaches Fortress Explosive Store, rips away the padlock, and enters.
Oh, better tell the professor we're leaving.
Yes, sir. What about Mr. Chorley?
No.
what about him?
Less he knows, the better. Right, I shall be leaving 4 men behind here. You'll be quite safe, Doctor.
You think their feet start to hurt every time they have to stomp?
No, they're used to it.
Someone here is in lead.
Or even you.
Yeah, I guess his mustache looks real enough there.
It's at Covent Garden, you say?
That's where we landed.
Ah, this is ridiculous. You can't land in an underground station.
TARDIS can. It's not an ordinary sort of craft.
Look.
Victoria, why are you talking to this
You
guy?
say it can get...
Weeds! Weeds!
What? Good Lord.
All right. So I guess it was Weems who was the traitor?
No,
No, that doesn't make sense. No,
I think it's Chorley.
It's Chorley.
We've forgotten completely.
Oh, yeah. I legitimately have forgotten everything about Chorley.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I guess it makes sense he would have the Yeti kill him and then bail, I guess. Why wouldn't he keep the peace, though?
Don't know. Guess we'll find out next week.
Yep. All right. That is the first 3 episodes. It does feel kind of weird to stop now. Like, I don't know. I guess just because when we originally did it, we did all 6 in one day. So,
and doing 6 in one day, you recall, that's 3 hours of watching and then another half hour to an hour of commenting. So
yeah,
that gets kind of long in the afternoon here.
I remember when we first did the first Dalek serial, that was 7 episodes. And I think like after the first 4, we stopped and went and had lunch and then came back. So it is definitely better that we only do a maximum of 4 at a time. Yeah. So, alrighty. Well, again, it is better in context.
Yes.
And we still liked it the first time.
It does seem to move much faster than I remember it, because partially because of the Recon episode and everything. Weren't more of them in Recon?
No,
just the one?
Just the one.
Wow. But yeah, in the Recon, it would have been so much better if they had had more of the subtitles to say what the action was going on. Yeah.
And I mean, the interesting thing about this is that it is making... I don't know like how to describe it, but I feel like it's almost making Abominable Snowmen better. Because I mean, and like I guess maybe because I'm just remembering like all the best parts, and like I'm forgetting like, yeah, there were a lot of slow bits in the middle there, and that was 6 episodes, and it probably didn't need to be. This one feels a bit more like, okay, yeah, 6 episodes, it works, and just remembering like everything that was there, and then how it's now being built up again here, like.
Well, also there are more characters.
Yeah.
Different sets.
Mm-hmm.
We got like 5 or 6 different plot lines here, whereas then there were the warrior monks, and then there's the Doctor and his companions.
Yeah.
And it just, this builds up for a sequel, and sequels usually are not as good as the original. The sequel so far is surpassing the original.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess just down to like maybe one issue with the Abominable Snowmen was that like they kept getting captured. They kept getting like, oh, we don't really trust them and stuff. Like here, it's nice that we already have, even if, we have people that don't really trust the Doctor, we do have Travers who completely trusts him after what happened in the last one. And even, I want to call him the Brigadier just because it's simple, but technically he's not a Brigadier
yet. He's just the Colonel.
Yeah, Colonel Lethbridge Stewart. But so if I just say Brigadier, obviously we all know who we're talking about here. But even he, like, he doesn't fully understand the Doctor, like where he came from and why he should trust him. But he's like, okay, Travers vouches for you. Okay, what can you contribute here? Like I do like that aspect of it too. So, and honestly, just the fact that the Brigadier just came in, took over the entire episode. Like I do kind of like that, which is odd because. We're watching this knowing that the Brigadier becomes a long-standing companion over multiple Doctors, and really, I guess cements his place in Doctor Who. But back then, when they wrote this, they just wrote, "Here's this character, and now he's taking over." Well, why? Why bring in this guy all of a sudden? Yeah,
it makes you wonder if they had plans for him to continue. Or if just that he was so popular in this serial that they decided to make him a regular.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they were thinking, like, because this is a contemporary episode set in the 60s, they were like, okay, maybe they had the idea like for UNIT and everything, and so they were like, okay, well, we need someone who's like the head of UNIT basically, so we could introduce him to the Doctor in this serial, and then maybe they gave them that as like, now, here.
I may have misheard this, but one of the characters said that the Doctor met Travers in 1935, and it was 40 years later, and I thought I heard somebody say 1975, so this would theoretically be in the future, about 10 years in the future to when it was being filmed.
Yeah, technically. I mean, this is probably close to 68 by this point, maybe even starting to get it. Well, actually, this would be. Is this the fifth? No, this is
yeah, so this would be the end of 68 going into 69.
Yeah, definitely.
Because it started late in 62. So by December of 63, that was really just the first year.
Yeah.
You got 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68.
Yeah. So, and I guess maybe that would make sense that if you put this in 1975, then, you know, I don't know how often the Brigadier shows up for the second Doctor. Obviously, he's a major character with the third Doctor because the third Doctor is stuck at UNIT, and that is in the 70s. It's the early 70s. It's not quite 75, but it would be around there. So maybe they're thinking long term. Maybe they're thinking of the Time Lords by now.
Ooh.
I mean, they got to start thinking about that. The Time Lords will show up before the end of the second Doctor. So maybe they are. Maybe they're starting to think about all this stuff, which is why, you know, you also do a sequel episode. Have we had too many sequel episodes?
Other than the Daleks and the Cybermen, no, not really.
Yeah, those are pretty much the only ones. And even those, like, they're kind of loose sequels. I mean, the only things that sort of carry over are the Daleks and the Cybermen.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is the first one where it's like, no, it's not just we're bringing back the enemy, but we're also bringing back, like, Travers.
Yeah.
He's kind of the only one, but still.
Although, the sequel within the original, when they did the Ark, where they landed in the same place 700 years later, that's theoretically a sequel, but
technically.
Yeah.
So, okay. Well, the first thing I wrote down is that the Doctor tried to control the TARDIS again, and obviously it got pissy. So, it's interesting how often this has come up, you know, because, I mean, I guess that happened a little bit with the first Doctor as well. You know, I think when they brought in Vicky, like, they made a joke like, oh, well, we're not really sure where we're going to land. Like, oh, well, doesn't the Doctor tell you? It's like, he doesn't really know where we're going to land. He just kind of goes. And I think that's when, like, the Doctor was about to kick them out, basically. And then that also happened again with the moon base, where the Doctor was like, I will take you to Mars, exactly where I want us to go. And then they ended up on the moon instead. Because obviously, anytime he tries to do that, the TARDIS just is like, no. Sit down, Doctor. I control where we go.
I got it.
Yeah. Although, this one partially... I mean, this probably might not have been in the TARDIS's control, because, you know, they take off because of Salamander, and then, you know, they're just sort of careening through space-time, trying to get the doors closed. Suddenly, the intelligence sort of traps them there, and then, because of that, then they land where the intelligence wants. Yeah. So... it might be that even this might be the only one where it's out of the TARDIS's hands where they landed. So, I also wrote down reactivate, that when Travers said originally, it's like, oh, well, I reactivated one of the spheres. Like, what did you do that for? You know, like, it's so interesting, like, watching that first scene again, like, oh, I get it now. Like, I understand, like, everything that they're talking about. So it's like, what did you do that for, man?
Yeah, it would be one thing if all the Yeti were still back in Asia, in Tibet.
Yeah.
And he reactivated the sphere in London, because I don't know that it would have had that kind of range. But the fact that he knows that there's at least one Yeti in that museum, in that collection, to reactivate the sphere that close to it, he should have known there would be a reaction.
Yeah. Now, they also said that because he reactivated the sphere, that basically the intelligence homed in on it, and that's why, you know, all the other Yetis are waking up. But there was another Yeti at the museum, and they killed, at least I'm pretty sure, unless I just saw that shot weirdly, but it looked like there were 2 of them there, and they killed, whoever owned the museum.
Silverstein.
Yeah.
But see, I thought Silverstein said the reason why he wanted to keep the Yeti because it was the only one.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he did say that too. So yeah, I'm not really sure. And it's also strange that 40 years ago Tibet happens, and then 30 years ago, so 10 years after that, he sells the only Yeti he had, and then only recently did he reactivate the sphere. So it just seems strange, like, well, why did you sell the Yeti if you were still working on the sphere this whole time?
Well, my take on that is he might have sold the Yeti to get enough money to work on the sphere, and it's taken him 25 years to get it reactivated.
Maybe. It could be.
I mean, that's a plausible fan theory.
Yeah. I mean, he is one man trying to work on this thing that, the great intelligence created, so could be something like that. Let's see. I do also... I don't know why, originally... I didn't understand the scope of what was happening with this, where it's Londoners flee from this, menace and stuff. For some reason, that just didn't click in my head, oh no, the city's abandoned.
Yeah.
There's nobody up there. This is a big deal what's happened. And honestly, it's one of those things oh man, so this is a huge alien invasion. They're never going to reference this again. Or if they do, they're all the common people are going to be that didn't happen. We all just left for a week. So...
like a bloody holiday camp.
Yeah, I mean, because that is the joke on Doctor Who. There's one time in one of Capaldi's seasons where, for 6 months the world was taken over by aliens, and then the Doctor finally defeats them, and basically they say, oh, well, luckily those aliens erased everyone's memories of them, so nobody remembers. Really? But what's all this proof over here? They made, statues to themselves, and, they asked someone's oh, what do you think this statue was? And, oh, we thought they were just filming something or something. And they just move on. It's very infuriating that Doctor Who has to keep that sort of status quo about it. I imagine if, a couple hundred years passes, somehow Doctor Who keeps airing to where they catch up to the Daleks' invasion of Earth. That is going to happen. That's going to be a season arc or something. But at the end, the Daleks are going to be defeated by the First Doctor, and they'll be oh, that didn't happen. We're fine. But that does assume that Doctor Who goes on to keep airing in, what would that be, 2164, I think?
Well, I don't think anybody would have predicted that it would have lasted 60 years, so...
Yeah.
That's not counted out.
Yeah, the Doctor is on their 50th regeneration. At that point, that's a long time to live, Alright, let's see. I do like the entire just operation down here. I thought that was really interesting. I'm getting into it a bit more this time around. And I also later when they do the briefing, oh, this is nice. We're all just, we're sitting around, we're trying to come up with ideas. The Doctor is being taken seriously, which is rare on this show. He'll normally say something and then they're just a crazy man, So I do kind of like all that. And again, when it's oh, well, should the Brigadier trust him at this point? Probably not. But, they do have, okay, Travers vouches for him. It's probably in my best interest to listen to him, even if some of the stuff he says is, kind of out there. So I like that stuff. Let's see. And then again, like I said earlier, the stuff where, Travers obviously trusts the Doctor and Jamie and Victoria because he met them before. And so then you see everyone else, and they don't trust them for obvious reasons. And they say, oh, well, maybe he's behind it. And it is one of those weird things that now I'm sitting here because even though when we first watched this, we were well, obviously it's not the Doctor. We've watched enough episodes at that point. But then watching it here, it's no, it's not the Doctor. There's a great intelligence in space that made a goo thing on a mountain with Padmasambhava. With it's common knowledge, except it's not common knowledge. So, which I guess does that mean that whatever that
Goo mountain?
Yeah, that goo mountain. I guess that was more of a fungus. If it's similar to what's
Yes.
going on in the tunnels here.
And here's the thing. In the 1960s, I would imagine the population of Tibet was very, very small. All right? First of all, of course, because it's so high up. The Tibetan Plateau is up there on par with the rest of the Himalayas. So it's very cold up there. There's some farmers, and there are, of course, the monks, the Buddhist monks that are up there. But it would have been an area where not much news would have escaped from.
Yeah.
So, other than the monks, I don't know that anybody would have known about the mountain of fungus.
Yeah.
Or whatever goo that is.
A mountain of fungus sounds better than a mountain of goo. So, and then I also because they do sort of bring that up. It's like, oh well, how come more people don't really know about this? And Victoria says well, you're his daughter and you have a hard time believing this. And it's like not only do we have to explain okay, the Doctor is a time traveler, he has a time machine, he goes throughout space and time, with his companions. It's like, oh yeah, what does this time machine look like? It looks like this. And this is, the 60s or even 70s. They all know that it looks like this. It's like, well, it's bigger on the inside. It also looks very daft, so as they would say. So it's just a strange thing, Let's see. Then we also had Chorley before showing, I guess he's the traitor, which I guess is still technically not confirmed, and I can't believe neither of us remember if that was the case from the.
And again, I only vaguely remember him, but I think the thing that I dislike the most about him is that he's so slimy, so oily, so unctuous. Yeah. He's got that very, here in the United States, a Snidely Whiplash kind of personality about him. Just he's so obviously the villain that it now makes me wonder if he's probably not the villain.
Yeah, and the fact that we don't remember makes it even more like, is he the villain? He's so obvious, but I don't remember if it was that obvious and he was, or if it was that obvious and he's not. Yeah. If he's like a red herring or something. So, yeah, that's pretty interesting. And then it is one of those things with his personality and everything. It's like, this is a journalist who would have some sort of hot take on Twitter nowadays, and then everyone be like, I hate that guy.
Tabloid journalism is, I'll probably get into trouble for saying it's not really journalism. I mean, the idea behind journalism is you're supposed to report the facts without any kind of bias, whether that's left, right, up, down, whatever. Journalism is supposed to be the first draft of history. And again, I only spent about 5 years at 2 different newspapers working as a journalist, but I tried to keep my own personal beliefs out of my stories. And in fact, of course, it was way before you were born, but I had mentioned the story before. The reason why I got out of the business, I was working at the local newspaper here in Edmond, and I went on a story. I collected a bunch of facts and interviews about the story, but when I put it all together, there wasn't a story there. It was something about, was there some corruption at the university here in town? And the more I looked at it, I said, there's not a story here. I've interviewed both sides, and I come to the conclusion there's not a story here. And on a Friday afternoon, I left to go home, and went in actually to work on Saturday, and just again, I'd completely forgotten about it. And Sunday morning, on the front page of the newspaper, there was a story about corruption at the university, and it had my byline on it. And I went in Monday morning, and I went to the publisher and said, where did this story come from? Because I didn't write it. And he said, well, you had left your notes on the computer, and I took your notes, and I wrote the story. And I went, well, then why didn't you put your name on it? He said, well, because you collected all the facts. I said, but my facts showed that this story was not true. And you put a story on the front page of the newspaper that is not true, and you put my name on it. And he said, well, I'm the publisher, I'm the editor, I can do that. And I said, well, then consider this my 2 weeks' notice. And I just walked away, because I wasn't going to work somewhere where they were going to put my name on a story that I didn't write.
Yeah, that's not good. Ironically, story about corruption, then you go over and it's like, yeah, but the people writing this story aren't really good here.
Yeah.
So, Yeah.
That was a that was a very bad time for me. I could not believe that someone would do that.
Well, and it's so strange with Chorley here that it's like, he's always there with that one microphone in everyone's face, and they say it's like, oh, well, you have a habit of, spinning the truth into, lies and everything. And it's like, why is he down there? Like, this is an important, okay, you can send one guy down there in the middle of this operation in an abandoned London, where it's like, London, not really abandoned that often. It's like, okay, and people want to know the truth, but, there's still, operations going on here. It's like, who sent this guy? That's my next question.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah, there should have been a serious journalist.
Yeah, definitely. So...
I like that somebody even mentioned the war correspondents, if I recall, from World War II. These were the guys who said, this is what's happening, and we're getting our butts kicked here and there. They also reported when we were winning. But, you cannot lie to the people. I mean, that destroys your qualifications. You can't say that everything's fine when it's not fine. If you don't tell the truth, why would they have any reason to believe you?
Well, yeah, because it kind of makes you wonder. It's like, okay, so what is he actually reporting here? It's like, is he reporting, oh, well, these guys don't know what they're doing and stuff? And it's like, well, that's not necessarily true. I mean, it's very difficult. Obviously, when you're going against Yetis, it's a bit of a tricky situation. It's like, but then is he weirdly spinning it back? It's like, no, we're all good. We're all doing something, even though that's not necessarily truth. Because it's like, I don't know. It's such a strange thing where it's like, well, he's not really telling the truth. It's like, why would you not tell the truth where it's like, yeah, the army's having a bit of a difficult job here. There's Yetis and there's fungus in the tunnel. They don't really know what they're doing. They're trying, Yeah. They've got one professor and, and his daughter there that are trying to help, and I don't know. Charlie's very strange.
Yeah. Now, I will say this. I was very pleased at the soldier, was it the captain who was questioning Anne, about, how did a girl like you end up being a scientist? And she said, I wanted to be a scientist, and I became one.
Yeah.
And that's very much that female empowerment that we saw earlier with, Barbara and Polly.
Yeah.
So, it would be nice if somebody like she would become a companion, but unfortunately, we're going to be left with people who are not.
Yeah, we have, well, I mean, now, Jamie and Victoria are getting a little bit better.
Yeah.
They know how to plug something in. And Jamie can tell time, so it's...
Yeah, no, I don't remember seeing that watch on him before.
I think it's pretty recent that he got a watch, so...
But it was just, he was standing there in the background and he had his arms crossed or something, but it was glaring that with the rest of his outfit, there was this watch glowing on his wrist there.
Yeah. And I think someone has tried to, give a bit of the timeline of, how much time has passed. I think technically between Power of the Daleks, where we had, the first adventure with the second Doctor, and then the second adventure, the Highlanders, where they pick up Jamie, I think they say about a year passes between those two. So Ben and Polly have a year with the second Doctor before Jamie shows up, and then, another year passes before we lose Ben and Polly, and then probably, another year passes, and then... we get Victoria, and then another year passes, and we get around here. So, because not only are we watching it, week to week, but even still, you don't see everything in there, it does make it feel like, okay, a lot of stuff does happen, but we're just not seeing it. A lot of time has passed. Jamie and Victoria are getting more accustomed to, here's this magic box that shows you pictures and stuff, and, oh, look, they're moving and stuff. Because, it's okay, we have a Highlander... and a Victorian girl. It's how do they know half of this stuff? Yeah. But enough time has passed, and I guess the Doctor has just, given them lessons on, just modern stuff. Or they're thrown in at the deep end and they just figure it out as they go along. Yeah. So, but you're right. It would be nice to have someone from, the modern year, at least, who knows a bit about science, rather than Victoria, who, she knows some things. She's not our most proactive companion.
She knows 19th century science because of her father.
Yeah, and maybe she's picking up a couple things. She's not even trigger happy like she was in Tomb of the Cybermen. I keep waiting for that to come back, and I don't think I'm going to be disappointed. So, So yeah, let's see here.
What else you got there?
I mean, not too much else. Oh yeah, they do say that, you know, the Great Intelligence brought the TARDIS here specifically, and they kind of question that. I do remember now the whole plot. I guess spoilers if you haven't seen the remaining 3 parts, but I assume you have, and you've already seen our original reaction. That the whole point was that the Great Intelligence wants to take the Doctor's intelligence for himself. So, because yeah, you do sort of sit here. It's like, okay, you brought the one guy that beat you. You know, you brought him back, which is strange because normally it's like, oh well, there's this big thing, and the TARDIS brings them here. You know, or they just at this point they just sort of randomly, you know, it's happenstance that they appear. And it's like, no, they do specifically say that the intelligence brought them here for a reason. So, that's pretty much that. I mean, again, the last thing I sort of wrote down was the traitor. Again, I legitimately can't remember if it was Chorley or not. So, it's just one of those things where it's like, I remember Chorley being there, but I don't remember anything else about him from when we watched that episode.
You know, the only thing I remember beyond this is the last scene with Jamie.
Yeah,
doing what the doctor told him not to do.
Yeah,
for those of you who haven't seen it, no spoiler.
Yeah, so I'll be curious if that makes any more sense in context now. So, yeah, I don't know.
All right.
But that's basically it. Next time around, we will watch the last 3 parts of the Web of Fear, and we will also do our Twitter Q&A. So it'll probably be a 5-hour discussion based on the last time we did a Twitter Q&A.
And by the way, we'll have to finish up by about 5 o'clock. I know it's only 2 o'clock now, but I have my first read-through for Angel Street Gaslight next Saturday night.
So, all right. And with all that being said, we're Alex and Dad from 7th Hour Films, and we'll see you guys next time when we're on topic. Take care. Alright guys, thanks for watching this video. If you want to watch more of our Doctor Who classic reactions, including our original reaction to the Web of Fear, you can click on the playlist and the video. You can subscribe if you haven't done that already, and be sure you hit that notification bell. You can support me on Patreon and follow me on social media, links below in the description. See you guys later.